Thank you. I'm very happy to be here, and I'm glad that it worked out that I was able to be here at the beginning of Malchut. I consider the counting of the Omer as we do it now a very it's been a very important practice for me. And I loved Rabbi Feinsmith, uh, definition in terms of talking about mindfulness and especially in terms of speech, because I see uh, Malchut as this the definition of complexity and paradox, and that um, it is a foundation, and it's also everlasting, and it's also ever changing, which is not the kinds of things that we think about when we think about something that is foundational. And I also deeply appreciate the invitation it offers us to look at ourselves as priests, priestesses, and transformers, and how we relate to ourselves as well as how we relate to other people and the universe. And as I was so deeply struck by what Rabbi Feinsmith had to say that I decided to modify what I wanted to teach and talk about mindful self-talk. Uh, that, and I start again, I think this was one of the first things I taught here, is that the behind all of the commandments about loving the stranger, loving our fellow, loving our neighbor, loving our friend, beneath all of that is the divine expectation that we are to love ourselves. And that means we're also to have compassion for ourselves. And the more we deepen our compassion and our love for ourselves, the more patience and we have for ourselves, and the more compassion and love and patience we have for others. Because we recognize our own humanity. And by recognizing our own humanity, it makes it very possible for us to recognize another's humanity. One of the places where I find people often falling short is how we speak to ourselves. It doesn't mean that we get rid of, being impatient for ourselves. It does, though, change our response as it becomes a practice to really listen to that voice with compassion, and then learn to interrupt it. And the faster we interrupt it, the less likely we're to fall down that rabbit hole of being really horrible to ourselves. And so I really invite, whether it's a recently recognized struggle or an ongoing struggle, I invite all of you during this particular exercise and meditation and time together to bring your compassion and love and vulnerability to be with you, to sit in your lap, to sit with you in your heart, and just listen to yourself and listen to the love that you have from yourself, what the fears that you may have, the expectations that are not realistic. It's usually connected to some form of perfectionism. To really bring all of that forward and to use not only this exercise today, but this exercise all week, to unpack that and to disperse it more and more, so that you can really find the mindful talk for yourself, enabling you to have more mindful talk with and speech with others. So with that, I invite you to settle in wherever you are. You might want to rock yourself or sit a little taller. I tend to, especially to start with my feet under my chair. Make sure your feet are out from your chair. Just get more comfortable in your body. And as I almost always do, I invite you to join me in breathing. I'll count to 4 in, pause. I'll count to 4 out. We'll do that twice. And the third time, we're just going to let out whatever sound we may have. And 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4, 3, 2, 1, and 1, 2, 3, 4, and 4, 3, 2, 1. And on this next one, again, as we exhale, release whatever sound from a deep sigh to a scream. Everyone around you will be okay. And 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh. And you might want to check your arms, make sure they're in your shoulders. And also feel the energy around you, the sounds. And feel the energy come down over your head. You might feel some tingling. Be more aware of the pulsating. Just let it come down over your mouth and down your chin. Feel it settle on your shoulders and the back of your head. And let it keep moving down your arms and your back and your chest. Whatever aches you feel, note them, but don't worry about them right now. You can breathe a little energy into them as the energy continues to move down your belly and down your back, over your hips and your thighs. Let it settle all the way down into your root. Feel the chair under you as it moves down the back of your thighs and the front of your thighs and over your knees and down your calves and your shins into your ankle and your feet. If anything is stuck in your fingers, let it out. Let it all out and go down into the ground, past the foundation, into the web of life that lives beneath the soil and the tree roots. And when you are ready, find a place to anchor. Check your body just one more time for any little aches. Invite the aches to be present. Invite them into your lap. Any hurts and sorrows that want to join, that's fine too. And be with the negative self-talk. And invite it to share how it sees itself as protecting you. And if there's another question, that's fine. If you find yourself dwelling or getting distracted, just come back to your breath. I invite you to take your dominant hand and place it over your heart and extend your hand to the world, to the room, to the universe. And if you know someone who needs a little extra love and compassion, let it flow out your hand, your fingers, to that person. And as it moves through time and space, may it fall also on others. I invite you to take that hand with all that flowing love and put it on top of your dominant hand and replenish and love yourself. And when you are ready, I invite you to come back into the room. I close with teaching from, I can't remember her right name right now, Bornstein. You know who I'm talking about, Mark.
Sylvia.
Sylvia Bornstein. When the next time you find yourself having that moment where whether you're complaining to yourself or ranting to yourself, put your dominant hand again over your heart and say, "Oh, honey, it's okay. You're okay." In other words, pat yourself like you would a good friend who is having a moment, and say the same kinds of encouraging words you would to them as well. It's another way to begin to interrupt that and to have with a physicality. Thank you all very much for your time and attention.
Thank you so much, Sabrina, Sojourner. Beautiful teaching. And if I might, on this Yom Yerushalayim, when there's so much tension, so much anger, upset, discord around the city of Yerushalayim, inviting us to continue that practice Sabrina suggested of allowing that chesed, love, to flow from our heart space through the fingers. Very moved to think about over 300 people sending that energy. Sha'alo Shalom Yerushalayim, to seek the peace of Yerushalayim from afar, from wherever we are at this moment. And to bring that energy as well to those of us who are in mourning or have suffering loss or grieving for any reason, including grieving for Jerusalem.
Yeah.
And invite you, if you are moved, to add a name or names of any of your loved ones who you're holding in your heart today. And we seal our practice as we always do with Mourner's Kaddish. And then invite those of you who are able and would like to stay on for some conversation with Sabrina about that beautiful teaching and practice for today. And meanwhile, invite those of you who are reciting Kaddish to join me in rising in body or in spirit to share the words. Yitkadal, Yikadash, Shmei Rama,
Amen.
Yamad, Yirach, Rute, Yamich, Malchute, Chayichon, Yamechon, Utayed, Beit Israel, Hagalah, Kari, Kimru. Amen.
Hey, Shmei,
Shmei
Rabba,
Rabba,
Barak,
Barak,
Ome,
Olam,
Ome,
Ame,
Amen.
Amen. Ishtabach, Art, Kaman, Te, Art, Halal, Shemay, Ela, may all of your Hashemashah, Amen. Ishlama Rabba Min Shamaya. Malenu V'Yavo Amen. Shalom Yirama. Kriyas Shalom. Kol Yisrael. Kol Yoshvei Tevel. Amen.
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 Once more, thanks to you, Sabrina Sojourner, for leading us once more so beautifully in practice today. And thanks to Peggy Levitt for sponsoring today's practice in loving memory of your father, Frederick Levitt. Zichrono Livracha, may his memory be a blessing. Thanks to Adi Stein, as always, for holding our space with skill and grace. You're invited to join us, of course, any day, but hope you'll join us as often as you can during this week of Malchut, the 7th week of the Omer, leading us up to standing at Sinai for Shavuot next Sunday and Monday, a week from today. For those who are leaving, we hope you stay safe and well today and hope to see you again soon. And for those first timers joining us today, we hope you find this helpful and meaningful and supportive in these challenging times, and hope you'll join us another time soon. And Sabrina, thank you again. I want to invite those of you who have a question for Sabrina to put it in the chat box, and if possible, preface it with questions in all caps. I just really appreciated, Sabrina, you're bringing our awareness in this beginning of this week of speech to self-speech. That was just great and such an important part of and an eye-opener for people who are new to the practice of mindfulness meditation. And first of all, just being aware that there's a conversation always going on, or a monologue, a constant monologue, right? The self-talk, and to listen to and pay attention to, well, what is actually being said here? Two things just so I don't forget, I'm going to tell you, I have two questions that came up for me. One was, I don't even know if one is not so much a question, but I'd love to hear you talk more about it. I don't know if you remember, but you invited people to rock yourself.
Yes.
And I did that. And I thought, this quality of chesed, of self-compassion, of love, just as you would rock a baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would soothe a baby by rocking. That in addition to sitting, to just sitting quietly, don't often think that rocking, that's like, well, how can you be still if you're rocking? But actually, the issue is soothing the nervous system.
Yes.
Right. So we can see clearly. And then it made me think, of course, of shuckling, which is that custom of moving the body in prayer. Right.
Right.
Which can feel very awkward for people, or, because of whatever associations they may have. For some people, not all people, obviously. So anyway, I tried that. I experimented with that. So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about that.
Okay.
What that, that's as an embodied practice. And then the other thing, just so I don't forget it, because I feel like it's really important, is that you alluded to there being a payoff to the negative self-talk. Like, how does it serve us? No, you said, what does it protect us from?
Right.
I'd love to hear you talk about that. So those two things I wanted to mention.
I'll start actually with the second one first.
Okay.
As I've often said, that sometimes our strongest emotions are a cover for something else, for fear, for being vulnerable, being asked to be vulnerable, for indignation, Sometimes we can call it righteous indignation. I'm beginning to wonder if indignation is ever righteous, but that's a whole nother. But there's, injustices. There's shock also, just being surprised by what's going on. So it can be a cover for something we really don't want to feel. Regret, a sadness. I mean, the list is endless. And I'll come back also with emotions are emotions. We are not the emotion that we feel. It is a feeling that's asking to be experienced, usually for a very short amount of time, not more than 2 minutes and 15 seconds or so. So if you can think of it, if I just let it move through me, it'll, and move with it and be with it, it usually moves pretty fast. And that's also important as we find ourselves angry. And there are times when it is appropriate to be angry, and we want to stay present to what's going on. So by acknowledging the anger and not seeing through the anger, in other words, moving it to an emotional side so that our heart remains open. We can, in the listening comes an opportunity to see, oh, I got angry because it actually is not related to what's being said. It's related to something that happened 5 minutes ago or 5 years ago. But you can see the connection, which allows you to respond appropriately in the moment. It still may need to be addressed, but you may not need to be quite as loud with what you have to say. In which case, it gives you an opportunity to be heard. So the protector. I usually think of my protector as being my 12-year-old self, who sometimes would rather.
That's the self-critical voice, Sabrina?
Well, it's more like, who are you to be talking to me like that? Is really, you have a 12-year-old. So it's like, and so I was like, we're trying to figure out who we are. We're still a child, and yet we have these, adult experience. We know more than we were really little, but we're not fully, and we have hormones going on like crazy. So it's like all of that confoundedness that's going on. It's like, I'm feeling stuff and I don't know what it is I'm feeling because it's new. I'm feeling stuff and it's not making sense in this moment. And so recognizing that we are always all the ages that we've ever been. And so sometimes we're not responding from our adult self, we're responding from our another experience. And when we can take the time to discern that, again, we can have more compassion for ourselves and therefore have compassion to the person who has triggered something with it, not caused us. But it's our button and we need to be responsible for it. And by making that distinction, we can move from being reactive to responsive.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's great. And, I think what you're saying, just to put a point on it, by identifying, like when you say like, oh, I hear this voice, it might be, let's say it's the self-critical voice, the inner judge, right? Before we form an opinion about that, what we're noticing, to be just curious about it. Like you say, like, oh, how old is that voice? Or what part, or whose voice, whose voice is that? What part of my life is that from? Before we take it too seriously, right?
Yes.
And before we analyze it and figure out what it is, to say like, oh, when we do that, like you're saying, it's a reminder of, oh, that's not, I think that's me, but it actually isn't me.
Right.
I'm not attached. I don't have to be attached to that. Yeah. So it's, it's flipping into curiosity mode. Oh, that's interesting that I say such ridiculous things to myself, or that I like my own worst enemy, or that whatever's coming up is that's interesting. The curiosity, and then the compassion, and then applying the compassion to that and saying, oh, well, you're being so hard on yourself, just to bring Sylvia Bornstein back into this, right. This is the sweetheart practice. It's okay, sweetheart. It's okay. Yeah. And then the question then becomes, I think for a lot of us, how do we respond if we, like that, like then becomes curiosity is that, how does that feel to, to call yourself sweetheart?
Right.
How does that feel to receive that? Can you be okay with that? Can I be okay with that?
Yes.
Can I
Yeah.
accept that? Can I receive that? And if not, can I be okay with that too? Can I
Yeah.
just be curious about, wow, that's interesting. That's hard. Ow. Why?
Yeah. I think yes, and I think especially if we're starting from a new practice or our practice is changing,
Mm-hmm.
being willing to be okay with just noticing. I mean, there's really nothing to fix,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's one of the things that I didn't say before. There's nothing to fix, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And we can transform, we can move, just
Mm-hmm.
and where we want to go, or even the possibilities that present, start with just noticing, just being with it.
Yes. Yeah. Seeing this, I'm just looking at the chat for a sec.
Okay.
So Lori says once she puts it as a question, but it's an observation, I guess. Once we've invited our negative patterns of self-talk into our laps, I love that. A nice way to say that. Hey, or come sit on my lap,
Uh-huh.
and see how they're really just trying to protect us from shame, embarrassment, ridicule, etc. Then what do we say to these precious misguided patterns like treasured young beloveds? That's lovely, Lori. Thank you. What do
That
we
is
say to them in our lap as treasured young beloveds?
yeah, that is perfect because it usually is a younger self
Mm,
that felt like that was in I know for myself from it was I was in a situation where I needed someone to step up to stand up for me and no one did, or um I didn't know how to stand up for myself.
mm-hmm,
So part of what I say to that, what did she say, younger beloveds, is that what the phrase was?
mm-hmm,
Is it's okay, honey. We're not 12 anymore. I'm not your age right now. I have this. I just need
mm-hmm.
you to know that I have this.
Yeah.
Just like I would. I mean, I remember when my son, my oldest son, um, started to like step in for me. It's like I had to like say, I love you and I'm the adult here. And so, and it got him to relax because there were times when he felt like he wanted to step in, he wanted to protect mom. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. And so teaching him how to, when to step in and when not to step in, that's the same thing I do with the younger selves that are inside of me.
Yeah, that's great. And
Yeah.
also, just to help, to think about bringing this into our lives too, whether it's the self-talk or others talk. The thing that came up for me also, Sabrina, was the thought of if I hear that inner voice and thinking, let me rephrase that, which is I think a good mantra for this week of
Yes.
noticing, I hear this, but under that, I think there's something else that's trying to be said, right? We're peeling the layers. So let me rephrase that. Like when one of my kids, is a wonderful kid, but like I notice, and I'm sure picked it up for me, completely picked it up for me, is always scanning for the problem, always
Yeah.
scanning for what's wrong. How was your day? Oh, it was good, but this and this and this happened. And it's like when I see that, it's like, ouch, that hurts, because you must have gotten that from me, like, but it's for the but, it's like, well, let's reframe, and I think, oh, let's reframe that. Okay, like this, and this happened, and also all this good stuff happened, right? Like, what was
Yeah.
the, and so, but without the rephrasing, I'd be stuck with, why you're such an ingrate, like, why are you such a
Exactly.
kvetch? Gee,
Yeah.
and when we kvetch or when we complain or when we're critical, maybe we're trying to, like you said, exactly, like maybe I'm trying to protect myself from how it feels to actually be appreciative of what's going on, right? And I'm
Or
afraid to
to
be appreciative.
receive appreciation. How many
Yeah, right.
times do we get a compliment from
Mm,
somebody and
mm-hmm.
and we'll say, oh, it was, we just mess away. We just wipe it away. It's as if it was never said.
Mhm.
And and the invitation really is that I give is to say thank you and shut up. Just
All right.
stop right there.
Sabrina, let's role play this right now.
Okay.
Sabrina, that was an absolutely beautiful meditation today.
Thank you very much. I deeply appreciate that.
Fantastic. Well done. Yes, you go.
Before
God,
we
okay,
close,
look
I
it
want
up.
to get to the
Yeah.
rocking.
Oh,
Because,
yeah.
yeah, rocking is very soothing. From the up and down of the horses or animals on the merry-go-round to being in a rocking chair, even lying back in an Adirondack chair, which doesn't rock, but it gives us that
Mhm.
embodiment. So there is a rocking that occurs, and it really is to shift the nervous system and to also to shift the chemicals in our mind that we produce at those times. We actually produce a lot of endorphins, and that experience of having our feet up off the ground also allows us to feel cradled.
Mm. Well, at a time when we need this so badly, thanks for inviting us to do that, to give, to allow ourselves to soothe in that way, to be able to hear without judgment, those self-critical, that inner critic that is a legacy for many of us,
Yes.
and to apply chesed, to, the right hand, as we've been learning, is, it's associated with the chesed, the right shoulder, the right hand, and putting it over the heart, the center line, the tiferet, and the yesod and the malchut, which are all aligned in the middle of that tree of life, so that what comes out of our mouth will be informed by kindness and love. And you model that beautifully, Sabrina. So thank you again for being our teacher today. Just a reminder that Sabrina will be teaching at the Jews of Color Mishpacha Project National Virtual Shabbaton. That's a
It's not
mouthful
the first
this
one,
weekend.
but it is the second
Oh,
one. So
the second one. All right. Sorry.
yes.
All right.
The first one was many decades ago. So it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. All right. Okay, everyone. Great to be with you as always. And we hope to see you soon. And Sabrina, thanks once again for leading us so beautifully.